Hi, and welcome back to the event. We will now present GreenMobility, car sharing, the sharing economy. Also, I think starting to be a part of the regulation around that we talked a little bit about in the future. But I will hand the word over to you, Anders, to take us through kind of what is the business case in this.
Thank you, Michael, and welcome everyone for an introduction and presentation of GreenMobility and our business, and also how we impact not only the environment but also play in GreenTech. To give you an introduction, I think it's important to take a step back and look at what was the context, what was the world like when we started GreenMobility. And I think, as most of you know and experience, then cities are getting more and more overcrowded. We are seeing more and more cars entering the market, entering the city's streets, of course, causing a lot of pollution, also a lot of noise, queuing, and so on. So these are one of the fundamental topics that we are trying to impact positively in GreenMobility and ultimately remove polluting private cars from the streets of our cities. We've come a long way, but there's definitely still much more to do. Some of the mega trends that we founded the company on, and this is a mere 7 years ago, they are very much still the case today. The urbanization, as I just mentioned, from the increased traffic in our cities, more and more people are bringing 1, 2, 3, or even more cars, as a natural consequence of people moving towards larger cities. So that's a trend. That's something that will continue to happen. We see it worldwide. So we have to put up solutions as alternatives to just having private cars. The sharing economy is to a large extent something that enables our business, that we've grown more and more accustomed to sharing assets. In our case, of course, being the car, but it could be a lot of other things. We know it from Airbnb. We see examples of sharing designer bags or clothes and so on. So that fact that we can all agree that we can actually use the assets, they can be used by more people, and thus also lowering the emission for production of new things. Sustainability, of course, a key part in a GreenTech seminar, that we have to do better for our environment. We have to do better for the cities. I think it's a given, but we have to continue to rephrase it because it's still lacking a lot of places. For GreenMobility, it's in our name. It's been synonymous for us since we started, and an obvious thing for us. Only to work with sustainable solutions, in this case, electric cars. Our founder 7 years ago believed firmly that in the future, electric cars, zero-emission cars, would be the future demand of cities, and on the whole, the future is today. That is a growing requirement in many cities. So we made the right choice, even though it may not have been the easiest one at the beginning. Of course, we need some enablers as well to do what we do. Internet of Things or smartphone, increased connectivity. That's a huge part of the tech business that we're in. And that has come a long way since our start as well. In the beginning, you needed small RFID cards to open the cars. Now we can do everything via our smartphone. So that's the context and some of the trends that we started the company on. Briefly, where we are today with our business, we are operating across 4 countries. So Denmark as our home country, Finland with Helsinki, then in Belgium, Netherlands, with a total of 7 cities, where we across these markets operate a total of 1,600 electric vehicles that every day impact our cities and the streets that we drive upon. I'll come a little bit back to some of the figures at the end of my presentation. So for this next part, just to sort of give a small introduction to car sharing. It is a super fast one, but I think it's also important to understand how we operate, for those of you who are not super familiar with our business. We operate within a given geographic zone, in this case, drawing around Copenhagen, where we have a zone, and in that zone you can find our cars through our app, of course, and they will be parked around the streets. So it is what's called a free-floating car sharing, meaning that the cars can be parked outside my office here or 200 meters down the street, anywhere where it's legal to park. So you simply locate the cars in our app, you reserve them, and once you get to the car, you unlock it, you drive for as long as you want. It can be 2 minutes, it can be 2 days. You can pretty much do whatever you want. I think that's the key, making it very flexible, very dynamic, to interact with whatever you want. Maybe it's something today, maybe it's different tomorrow. You can take the car literally everywhere you want. You can go outside our zone. You just have to return it to the zone, not necessarily where you started, but just within this geographic zone when you end the trip. Making it very, very simple. It's a key part of operating our business. On the map, you'll see small blue dots marked HS, and that's our hotspots, and it's reserved parking for all cars. You can park at street level, but you can also choose our hotspots, where we've made it even more convenient for you as a customer. You can usually always find a car there, but you can also have very easy access to parking. And as you see, there's a sort of concentration around the inner city. That's to make it even more accessible for everyone to go to the best places, shopping, restaurants, culture things, and so on. So a brief sort of introduction to operation. We don't have time to go deep into it. I'll jump one back, sorry. But in essence, we can frame it in a very simple way, and also how we impact the environment. So we provide an on-demand flexible mobility solutions, and essentially you can go wherever you want, whenever you want. And I think that it's this flexibility and non-commitment that a lot of people seeking today. We don't want to commit to owning a car. It's a lot of hassles, especially if you live in the city, maybe predominantly also for young people. There's a lot of cost, a lot of hassles in owning a car. So this flexibility, freedom is a key part of our business. The way we generate revenue is very simple. There's a revenue for the trips you make. It can be on a minute base, it can be on an hourly base, or even day packages. So we have a variety of offering that can cater for every scenario that you want. That's the revenue part of the business, and there's a direct correlation to how we impact the environment. Every kilometer driven, we can calculate CO2 saved. So there's a sort of very simple triangle in this. We create a very simple product that everyone needs. Some will need it every day, some will need it occasionally. We generate revenue from that, and we have a very positive impact on the environment by doing so. And to sort of extend that a little bit, of course, it's much more than just CO2 savings. We've built a company that from day one was very green. It is in our name. It's also in our DNA. And I think to many of our team members, we don't even think about it. But living this and also taking it to sort of next steps, taking it further, how can we impact other parts of our society just by driving electric shared cars? Of course, we have the CO2 emissions, and then as you can see on the graph, they stack up very impressively over the years. So more than 6,000 tons of CO2 has been saved directly from our driving in our cars. But on the second part, we work very diligently on is to reduce private car ownership. And you can say, okay, what should be even mind about that? But yes, because when we work with cities, we interact with a lot of cities. One of the key parts in improving mobility, improving the environment, is to reduce private polluting cars in the cities. So we work very intensively also on how can we, by offering our choice, can we actually measure that we reduce private cars. We do that today with roughly a factor of 1 to 6. So for every car we have on the streets, we remove 6 private cars from the cities. And this is something that we measure among our customers. We ask them regularly to measure this. And of course, for the cities that we operate in, this is a key KPI that we can actually prove that we're reducing private cars. We need to remove much more. Of course, there are still thousands and thousands of cars in most cities, but we started the right path and growing on that year by year. We also look very much on how can we optimize the use of cars, how can we optimize the parking spots, and you say, okay, how can we impact that? We can impact parking by using shared cars. So a shared car is parked much less than a private car. So we actually take up less parking space, and that can be used by cities as well to reduce parking spaces or even make it more effectively. So in our dealings with cities around Europe, these are some key KPIs that they are very focused on, and where we can actually make a direct impact. We focus very much on recycling of parts. I'll come back to that in a minute. We look at noise reduction in traffic. As you may remember in the beginning, noise is a big part of traffic as well. Electric cars essentially make no noise, so you are having a very positive impact. And as some may know, noise is a big factor in stress as well. And if you live in a very noisy city, it is stressful. So also working very much on the social part of ESG. Driving behavior is also an impact that we would like to add to. I believe by having electric cars, while some electric cars are very fast, we have, let's say, more modest electric cars, but it's also a lot about the behavior. So we work with our customers. We don't accept any type of reckless driving, of course, but really also having that as a positive impact in cities. And then this equal opportunities, I believe very strongly is that everyone should have access to a car. And up until a few years ago, then having a car was you had to own it, which meant a huge investment. Now we provide that flexibility to everyone. And you can use it for a short period of time, a longer period of status. So really give access to everyone. And then I think maybe the last part also this the idea of awareness on electric cars that have a positive impact on sustainability. While I don't want to take full credit for the, sort of the deployment of electric cars, it's still a funny thing. When we started GreenMobility, we had a lot of customers calling in who were afraid of driving electric cars, who didn't know how to drive electric cars. And today we can laugh about it because we are so used to it today. But we've definitely played a part in that as well. So for GreenMobility, I think being part of this environment and having an impact directly that we can measure is key for us. Based on EU's new taxonomy, we can actually claim that GreenMobility is 100% environmentally sustainable. Based on everything that we do actually have a positive impact and doesn't hurt the existing environment. Some of the key areas, of course, that we focus on is our car supplier, but also our power or electricity providers, that they work very effectively when it comes to sustainability as well, meaning a car, okay, so what parts is it built upon? Can it be reused, recycled, and so on? Same for the electricity, where does it come from? Obviously, we can't control everything as an operator. I can't impact where they actually produce the cars and how they produce it, but we can definitely challenge them. We can choose to buy from the supplier who has the best possible car environmentally wise. Same for electricity. No one can ultimately control the mix of energy sources in electricity, but we can definitely challenge our suppliers. We can look for the suppliers who offers the most green electricity for our business. Then I think, as mentioned before, an example, and I think it's one of the ones that is very tangible and something everyone can relate to. When we look at our spare parts, of course we have damages, we have cars that need repairs in some kind of way. So how do we ensure we just don't take the easy solution, buy a new part and throw the other one away? We recycle as many parts as possible, even damaged parts. So if a car has, for example, a dent in a door, we will take out the door. We have extra doors on inventory, and then we repair the damaged door, but the car can go back on the street, generating revenue and having a positive impact on the environment. But the door that got a dent, we will repair that, we'll fix the dent, and then it's sitting on inventory for the next car. Whereas in a typical situation, we just throw out the door and you buy a new one. Could be the same for a bumper or side mirror or anything. So this is with a clear focus on minimizing waste. That a part has to be completely broken beyond repair before we throw it out. I think that's a key part, and looking at all parts of your business. Same with our batteries. Can we reuse them in some way as well? One now I've put in here our highlights from Q1. Again, coming a little bit back to some of the KPIs. We've seen continued growth in our business quarter by quarter. Q1 traditionally a bit weaker than Q4 because we have a winter season. We have January where people tend to go out less, but still actually a quite good growth, 29% above last year Q1. So something we're quite satisfied about. We have refocused our business where we've used to sort of be a traditional growth company, raising capital and growing additionally. Now we focus very much on bringing the company to a break-even level and into profitability for 2024, where the key part, of course, is that we don't want to raise additional capital. We want to bring the company from its current base into a profitable stage, which is also why we don't have any expectations or plans to raise new capital, but really continue running the business and improving the existing base we have in our 4 strong core markets, where we see the highest revenue per car, which is something we also report on during our quarterly reports. We continue to attract new customers, which of course is a key component in our business to generate trips and thereby generate revenue and positive impact on the green part. Same for our trips. Of course, more trips means more revenue, and that's a very simple way of growing the business. During the first quarter, we spent quite a bit of cash in closing 2 markets. We chose to close Sweden and Germany to focus on our 4 core markets, as mentioned. And that included also moving cars. So we continue to have the same fleet size, but move cars into our other markets. And that will be the key focus on the year to come to operate that. Charging cost, I know that's a key part as well when we talk about the green part and also the tech part. That of course during last year we saw an increase in electricity. That's also a factor still in car sharing. Charging, I think for every electric car sharing, we are depending on charging costs, and in some markets the competition is better, allowing for lower prices for us. But we see in Denmark still generally a high charging cost. So that's still a factor. It's something that we expect to see a reduction of during Q2 here. Maybe just a little sort of outlook looking into this year. Our guidance for the year is a continued growth, of course. I think that goes without saying. But a group revenue of 135 to 145 million Danish kroner, which would equal a growth of 40 to 50% compared to last year. And I think a strong continued growth where we've seen similar levels and higher in the past few years. Expectation of a net result of between 35 and 45 million kroner, which is a significant improvement compared to last year. And as stated, of course, also no expectation of raising capital. We believe we have sufficient for the year to come. I think that was from my side.
Questions.
20
minutes, so perfect. Yeah, we have one here. How is your service received in European cities outside Denmark, i.e. by authorities? Are there differences compared to Denmark? And do you receive subsidies in any sort? It's kind of, we said there's a subsidy war going on in this sector. So do you receive any subsidies, or do you receive benefits from being a city, i.e. free parking? If you can compare Denmark a little bit with other European countries.
Yeah, you would think that Europe would be aligned from EU in some way or form, but that's actually not the case. So cities look upon our business in different ways. We have some cities where car sharing is required to use electric cars. That would be in Amsterdam. That's not a requirement in other cities. Some cities we have free parking. Copenhagen, for example, offers free parking but that's for all electric cars. It's not only for car sharing. So it really varies. In Finland, we have lower parking costs due to being a car sharing service. So it's really, we have individual setups in each city. But of course, it's very much working with the cities, with the municipalities, and having a close relationship with them, because it can also be a matter of how do we park, where do we park, how quickly are they to give us parking fines or something like that. And on the subsidy part, we don't get we are not subsidized as a business, but in some countries we will get subsidies on buying electric cars. That would be Sweden and Germany. We've exited those markets, so from the markets we're in today, there are no subsidies. So it's really about running our business and making it the key priorities of generating, growing revenue and reducing cost, as you would do in any business.
I think we also, besides investors, have some users here. So you are moving a lot of cars to Copenhagen. Are you in consideration moving both in Aarhus and in Copenhagen, the geographic areas where you can actually park and drive, freely? Are you in consideration of that after moving a lot of cars? As I always say, the green agenda, I think people want to live it, but they also want to live it so it's easy, right? So I guess it's a big parameter for you that I don't need to think about whether I'm now crossing a border. So there's a question here: do you want to expand that both in Aarhus and in Copenhagen?
I think the clear answer is the simple answer is yes. We've already done that. We've expanded the zone in Copenhagen to include some areas west of Copenhagen, in Rødovre, Glostrup, that area, Dragør. We also expanded our zone in Lyngby, north of Copenhagen. In Aarhus, we are also doing some expansions. We're adding additional zones. Some of them are in the planning phases at the moment. But so yes, that would be the clear answer, of course. But and I fully understand, because you need to have the wider you can go, the easier it is, of course. On the other side, from our perspective, we don't want the cars too spread out, because then the distance between cars will be too big. But we are constantly looking at how can we expand it and still keeping a healthy flow of the cars. So we look for typically sort of large retail areas, but also large residential areas, large schools where people move a lot. And I think it's safe to say that we continue to look at where can we adjust or expand the zone to improve the offering.
And a final question, and we have a couple of minutes, and I'm glad we have a couple of minutes. You have reduced from 11 to 7 cities, but expect to grow to 30 cities in 2030. How? I'm laughing a little bit, and maybe a question there. You kept the 30 cities, but I guess with a new strategy, is that so important? How many cities it is, or is it more the 10,000 cars that we should look at as the ambition? So a little bit about how you get from here to here, because I guess you don't need capital to run this model, but I guess you need capital to run if you want to again expand.
Absolutely. If I should do 30 cities next year, then we would need more capital. That's clear. And to answer, I mean, we focus both on cities and cars, and I think having 30 cities, that would definitely also require at least 10,000 cars. But how do we grow? I think it's not unlike what we've done so far. Some will be greenfield, meaning that we have already identified quite a lot of cities, so we know where we want to go. Then building that city. Another solution could be to expand from existing hubs. That's also something we look very much at in our expansion plan, that For example, in Belgium, we operate 3 cities, but we have only 1 base. If you look at the Netherlands, we are in Amsterdam, but there are other cities close by in Netherlands that we could potentially and quite easily expand to. And then the last part would be by acquisitions. We've acquired smaller competitors before, and that's definitely also an option of expanding through that.
Perfect. I think I will end you there, Anders. I think that's it's a question for a whole teleconference on its own. So thank you, Anders, for taking us through the business case.
Thank